Please welcome our guest, Jeanette Bennett, to the stage. And hello, everyone watching and listening at home and around the world.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. It's fun to hang out with you, Clint.
Yeah, it always is so great. I had to do this one because it was you.
We've kind of grown up together.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
Like,
well,
our business. I'm
yeah.
older than you.
No. Did
I just insult you?
No. You've done far better than I have.
No, I don't know.
But yeah, we have kind of been following the same track. Mm-hmm. Tell us how. Well, one, there's a big announcement that you've made recently. You've joined Colliers. You've joined the Brandon Fugal and Lou Kramer group.
The trio.
Tell us about that idea.
Okay. Yeah. So I've been running my publishing company for 25 years and loving that. It's been a great seat at the table of Utah, to tell the stories and know the people and be in their homes and offices and laugh and cry with people. It's been an absolute honor. And so about 7 months ago, probably 8 now, Brandon Fugal and I we work on a lot of different committees together. We were working on a science center committee for Thanksgiving Point. So we were meeting about that. And we went to lunch, and I was just talking about life and different conversations, and it was like a light bulb went on, and he's like, "Oh, you should run Colliers. I've been looking for our next leader. It's you." And I honestly had never thought about that, and I didn't know if he was serious, and I didn't know what to think of it. And I thought he'd probably forget by tomorrow, and this is a fun conversation for a minute, I guess. And he did not forget, and the conversation continued, and it took me several months to really vet this out, because this is a big change for me. It's a big decision for Colliers too. Yeah. So Brandon started his own firm, and then in 2018 merged with Colliers. Colliers is a global brand, publicly traded company. So Colliers was really who needed to meet me and hire me. So multiple conversations, multiple flights to LA, me doing due diligence, them doing due diligence, and eventually through a lot of thought, talks with mentors, a scene from Dumb and Dumber, scripture, lots of things eventually led me to be like, I actually think I would be an idiot to say no to this. So I said yes, and April 15th, tax day, was my first day. So I've been there a month, and it feels like a good fit.
Yeah, it's a great fit. Man, they're lucky to have you. What was the Dumb and Dumber?
So it's kind of funny that you can get like deep thoughts from Dumb and Dumber, but the very last scene, do you remember when the Dumb and Dumber are walking along, and they're like, we never catch a break, like we want something good to happen. And then comes the bus full of bikini babes that are like, we're looking for 2 guys. And they're like, oh, there's a city that way. And off goes the bus. And they're like, hopefully we catch a break someday. And I was kind of acting like that to Colliers. Because, of course I want to grow. I love opportunities. I love challenges. I love Utah. But I was kind of, I don't know, go look for someone somewhere else. And finally I was like, I think I'm almost about to turn down like the coolest bus of opportunity that someone like me could have. I've had a lot of opportunities, but they would be to smaller niche companies where my lane would be very small. And I like a bigger lane. Yeah. I'm interested in academics and nonprofits and tech and, all of that. And Colliers is a big lane. And so once it kind of dawned on me, this might actually be the thing that maybe I didn't even know I was looking for, but is the right thing for me for my next chapter, for 2.0 of my life.
I love it. I think it's just so incredible. I love to see you in this role too. It's so cool. We talked a little bit about, hey, we've been doing this for a while, and whatever this is, community building or this type of thing. What do you think of Utah now from when we were first starting all of this?
So when we started Utah Valley Magazine in 2000, I mean, Utah County was such a bubble. This kind of worked in my favor because the point of the mountain was a very distinct barrier, geographically, culturally. Utah County would drive to Salt Lake, but not very much vice versa. And there was kind of a we're ignoring Utah County vibe from Salt Lake, which worked in my favor because there's a lot of media, even back then in Salt Lake. Multiple newspapers, TV stations, and they're kind of ignoring Utah County. So me coming down here and being like, I'm going to wrap my arms around this community, and I'm going to tell these stories. Salt Lake won't be paying us any attention. That was part of my success strategy. But that point of the mountain barrier has been coming down. Yeah. culturally, even physically, those gravel pits moving every day, companies that are jumping across borders back and forth, like that has really changed. The two counties coming together in this very area, and largely because of Silicon Slope. So that's been a big change. Also, I feel like we were a lot more homogenous back then and kind of happy with it. And now I think there's this excitement and desire to grow, have more diversity of thought, bring in people from the outside. It's been awesome that way. I also feel like as a woman, it's a better place now for women, and there are more female mentors and just interaction that I have. When we started the magazine, of course, as a woman, from the very beginning, I wanted there to be a lot of representation. But I remember our first 40 Under 40, which was 2006. That's the first time I did that article. I was really looking, and it was hard. I think I had 7. Because I didn't want it to be a gimme. Like, I wanted there to be a little bit of a level playing field. And now I'm able to do a pretty close to 50-50 most years. We're right there. So I think that's been great. Technology's been great for women. It just opens up the things that women and men want as far as flexibility and things like that. So it's a better world for women, so I love that.
Yeah, that's cool. I will say Salt Lake County still is pretty snobbish.
So maybe they've gotten a little better.
No, just kidding. I will... let's talk on this women thing for a minute. Utah County women, I mean, all Utah women are fantastic entrepreneurs, but there does seem to be like something around like consumer products, consumer brands, influencers, that type of stuff that has really kind of taken hold. Do you have any sense for why that is, or why we're so good at that here?
We rock at that. Like our UV50, where we name the top 50 businesses every year. Last year, our fastest growing company was Mixers. And we've had Freshly Picked at the top of that list. We've had, a lot of these brands. Their Just Ingredients is doing awesome. They're going to be on our lists. I think it's just the perfect storm of women are creative. They see a need. E-commerce is more accessible than ever before. Women are good at social media. And you just add that all together. And then men are great allies in this state as well. And so that's part of the secret sauce. It's been super, super fun to watch.
Yeah, that's cool. Where do you think we go from here? Now that you have a front row seat in all sorts of different areas, what do you think the future of Utah is?
In my new seat in commercial real estate, it's interesting because I think there's this feeling of like commercial real estate is in a slump. And parts of that are true, but industrial is going awesome. So there's industrial, retail, office, investment. There's different food groups, they call them there, learning the lingo of Colliers. And industrial, because of that e-commerce, is going great. I mean, Utah's a great place to have warehouse and manufacturing, and we have land to do that, even near here. That makes a lot of sense. And so that's cool. And in my publishing company, I've seen those ebbs and flows, right? So we had in 2001, the bubble burst, and then in 2008, the housing crisis. And I've watched the ups and downs. It's kind of cool to get older because you realize that when it's a down, it's not the end of the world. Yeah. That's kind of fun.
Yeah,
and you're like, cool. Oh, I've seen this before. Yeah. It gets better. But there's the counter-cyclical thing. So like in some of these counter-cyclical things, our network marketing companies have grown, and people want that side hustle, and they're eager for that. And so we've done publishing for them. So it's been fun, and our publishing company has ebbed and flowed like that too. When the tech companies don't need us, the network marketing companies do. So it's kind of fun. So I think Utah will continue to see those ups and downs, but we'll have a piece of every particular industry and potential up and down. So I think the economy will continue to grow and be steady because we're playing in all the ponds that go up and down, counter-cyclical and otherwise.
Yeah. By the way, be ready to ask questions out here because I'm gonna turn it over to you here in a bit. I do wonder, you were a master storyteller and really great at telling the stories of other folks, of the growth of Utah, all of these various things. And sometimes in tech, we're not actually that great at that. Like, I will meet with a company for an hour, and I will leave not knowing what they do still.
I've had that experience, too.
Like, so
you're in analytics? Okay.
You said AI 100 times, but I'm not sure what beyond that. And so what advice would you have for companies, entrepreneurs, leaders on the storytelling front, and how to best do that in order to, get a good audience and a good community around what you're building?
Well, I'm with you. Like, the story matters so much, and so getting your arms around that story. The story usually centers around a person or something with emotion, which is usually human, because we remember stories, right? Like, whatever conference you go to, whatever personal development speaker you hear, you remember their story at the end more than any data they said or a list of 5 things to do or whatever. The story sticks with you. You can remember that. And so I think it's so important for a company and an entrepreneur to flesh out their story. And I actually have loved that through the years of interviewing people, and they're telling me things and I'm asking questions they probably haven't thought about in a while. And I start to see threads of like, okay, so did you notice, like, in your childhood this, and then this happened, and now your company's doing this? And sometimes it hadn't dawned on them until I helped pull that thread for them. So that's kind of fun to see. But I think everybody needs to focus on those stories and be good at telling the stories. I feel like, there's so many stories to tell. When I'm really busy, I don't post very much. When I have a lot of stories to tell, I don't tell them because it's hard to even know where to start sometimes. But I do think it's so important to own your stories.
Yeah, it's even more so now than it even has been. All right, raise your hand if you have a question for Jeanette.
Hi, thanks for being here. My name is Nick Venker. I am Deputy General Counsel and SVP of Legal at Young Living, and some of what you talked about caught my attention. You talked about network marketing companies, and you also talked about warehousing, and that reminded me when I moved to Utah in 2017 of some of the challenges we had on the legal side that I worked on, of just not having enough warehousing in Utah, even having some weird situations then where there might be another company in our space where we're politically or even legally battling with that company, but we're in the same warehouse, or we're even subleasing from them because of lack of warehousing space. And then you get into, what works in a warehouse in terms of the docking or receiving or storage for one company doesn't work for another company. How do you see the future of warehousing in Utah, and how do you I know you're new at your role, but how do you deal with the fact that different companies renting the same warehouse might need a totally different setup or have different needs in terms of how they get in and out of that warehouse and how they store things?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And I am somewhat familiar with your industry and the players that you're discussing. We did a magazine for Young Living. Mary Young was on the cover. That was a lot of fun. Well, to speak to that, I think Utah's at our best when we are abundant thinkers. And I think Silicon Slopes has been the perfect example of that, where it's like, okay, we're going to compete for talent, we're going to compete for investment dollars, but let's be cool. Let's get together and do that. And so it makes me a little sad when we see companies that have these long-standing difficulties together. And I know this is very complicated. I'm just saying, in my Pollyanna way, I wish there could be more abundant thinking and fewer lawsuits. But the thing is, as far as commercial real estate needs, it comes down to each company prioritizing that, working with their brokers and other advisors to make that happen. I don't know that coexisting in a space when there's other difficulties is a good idea. I don't know that I would recommend that, but I can also see, there'd be some efficiencies, which in my mind would mean there's reason to work on the front side of those stories and coming together. One of the common things that I've learned when I've had, a few difficulties in the past of people being upset about something or whatever is once I hear them out, and I do think most of the time people just want to be heard. I think a lot of times they don't even expect the other person to solve their problem. They just want the other person to know what their problem is. And one of the phrases that I've used a lot is, we're actually pretty close on this. Because usually that's true, even politically. If someone's really upset about maybe something I believe or someone I voted for or something, like, we're actually pretty close on this. Like, we both love Utah. We both want Utah to be amazing. So we're just really close. We just see this slightly differently. So I kind of morphed your question there, but I think there's a lot to be said for working together and not getting hung up on time wasting and emotional wasting endeavors that can last for years if you don't take the time to just solve it and move forward.
Hi.
Hi.
We love your magazine, so we want to know what's going to happen to them.
Okay, that's a question I get a lot. So jumping back to, I kind of told the Dumb and Dumber story, but other things, I'll jump back to a couple years ago. I started feeling a little bit like a desire to have some new challenges. a little bit of a feeling of a finish line of sorts. Like the company that I love and that I'm growing, it has a cap on it. And I write about all these people and companies that are growing, and like I feel like I have more skills and ideas than I can implement in a publishing company. So I started being open to change, and even like a couple years ago, I went to the Silicon Slopes Summit, and almost everyone I met, I was like, hey, I'm actually thinking about selling my company. Do you have any advice for me? And I got a lot of advice and had a few appointments. I think we met actually around that time about it as well. And nothing really came of it, but I just started to feel like I don't know what the outcome of this it will be. I mean, the only thing is, I could give it off to my kids, which I'm not going to do. I have one who works there who's awesome, but I don't think my kids are going to take it to the next generation. I could close the door and walk away someday. That seems dumb when there's value on the table, which means the only answer is at some point to sell it. And so I was open to that. I have sold Utah Valley Bride magazine, and that one definitely felt like it was time for a new home, someone with new young energy. They're doing great. Sold it to a couple in their 30s that it's a wedding photographer and an e-commerce genius, and they have a lot of great ideas. I'm really happy for them. And I have more FOMO than like anyone I've ever met, but I actually am really proud of myself that I'm watching them succeed, and I'm like, that's so cool. I don't miss that at all. We have a little products division that we also sold. At this point, I don't know. I have 5 or 6 people that are looking at putting in an offer, and we're swapping financials at this point. I don't feel like I have to sell because it's working. I have a team of 12. We're a small company. They're doing well. We had a 40 under 40 photo shoot today that I stopped by just to basically be part of for a minute, but it was all run and set up by my team. Really proud of them. So by Christmas, I may have sold another title. Might sell the whole thing, I don't know. I'm trying to channel what 70-year-old Jeanette wants me to do. Like, what does she want me to do? She's hard to get a hold of, but like, what would she wish? Because one scenario is not to sell and kind of do my thing at Colliers and these different boards I'm on and the Science Center and just do all this stuff and keep that over here. And then in my retirement, be that lady who's still just showing up at all the things and telling stories. I don't know. So I'm not going to make that decision quickly, but I'm looking at different options right now. I'm really proud of my team. I'm finding myself double and triple booked lately, and I couldn't make a Best of Utah Valley event that my team was throwing the other day. Totally intended to be there. I was going to be part of the program. Didn't end up being able to go. And it went off amazing. And they're getting opportunities to step up, and that's cool to see. I remember with Larry Miller, and he's so amazing. And then when he passed away, and we're all in mourning, but his kids and wife have really stepped up and doubled the business or maybe tripled. And it's cool to see my staff, in the absence of me making the decisions, doing really well. It's a good feeling. It's not like a sad feeling. It's not like I feel bad about it. I feel great about that. So I'm kind of taking it a little bit at a time. I don't know how this will go. I'm not writing as much anymore. I'll probably still write the editor's letter for a little bit, but I don't know. I'm feeling my way out. So stay tuned for that.
We are very likely sitting with the future governor of Utah here.
Wow, that got serious quick.
I'm kind of not kidding. Like, and once you declare, we're all on board. We'll all wear your sticker. But
okay.
On that note, like, how have you built such an impressive Rolodex or network and group of individuals who literally would do, I know so many people would do anything you asked at any moment. I think that would be useful for some entrepreneurs and startup companies to get a sense for how to actually do that the right way.
Well, that's kind of you to say. I mean, part of it is just time, right? So for 25 years, I've been adding to my Rolodex, so to speak, and making connections. And I think it's an easier time now than ever before to manage those connections. When we started the magazine, Facebook didn't exist, or LinkedIn, or anything. And now there are these methods of connecting and quickly liking, commenting, whatever, and those things all add up to connections. So I would just say time is one of them. Intentionality is another. I think I've been lucky in that most of the people that I've been sitting down with, I'm not asking them for anything other than their time. And then I write a piece that hopefully they're proud of and they get to keep and share, and it's part of the story that they then can tell in a better way because I helped them do that. So I think in that serving of them, those relationships deepened. So I appreciated that. I feel like I'm a good listener, so I feel like a at least I hope, that I'm someone when I talk to someone, I'm not just like looking for the next entry in the conversation so I can talk, but I really am caring about their answer and their stories. And I think that adds up over time. I think I genuinely do like people, you know, and so that's been awesome. And yeah, I do feel lucky, you know, when you guys inducted me into the Hall of Fame last year. That was so cool, and I got texts from CEOs and people that I know they know me, but I didn't know like how much they cared or whatever. And that was really a meaningful moment for me to have that, both the event and just the moments leading up to it. So thank you for that. But I do think that network is so valuable. It's what sets us apart. And honestly, I think the Colliers opportunity is largely because of the network. Lou Kramer, who is the CEO there now, and he's 75, so he's got 26 years on me right there, and has so many great connections. I'm loving learning from him, and we'll continue on. And that's something when I was in college, I didn't realize that like a network had a value. You know, in college I thought, oh, my GPA matters. Yeah, right. You know, my clips matter, whatever. Those things matter, but like what really matters is who you are, and your network really matters. Yeah.
For sure. Who else? Again, a future governor, so ask her the hard questions.
Well, I'll vote for you.
Thank you, Barkley.
So I am sitting on a board that's ad hoc. It's called the Responsible AI Initiative. Taylor Randall kicked it off, and there's a handful of people around that. And so as we meet, one of the big questions comes up is infrastructure. And I've been thinking about you, like, how do we do this? Like supercomputers, like frontier supercomputers, right? Everybody's dumping them in, or there's quantum computers are happening. In California, it's just getting billions of dollars in investment. Mm-hmm. And if I were to just look out, you know, as my 70-year-old self, right, and look back, if we could, in Utah, bring in supercomputing at a much more robust level and be a frontier land for quantum, I think Silicon Slopes would have a chance of like really continuing to grow. And if we don't, it makes me nervous. Mm-hmm. I'm just wanted to just bring that into the conversation because now you're in the infrastructure space.
So what do you think some of the solutions and challenges are?
I think we're going to need to have, you know, future governor, really honestly, public-private partnerships I think are going to be the key because of the initial cost structures of these. And if we could really partner up across government and higher ed, where I'm sitting in now at UVU, and with companies, and just really come to and create business models and plans together that we could go out and actually get revenue, you know, bonds from the legislature to actually bring in supercomputers, but have enough business lined up that we know we could facilitate it and get enough federal dollars in. I think it's going to be. And we work really well together as a state, but I think we're going to have to do it even more. And then also leverage our capacity for energy. Yes. Because energy is the key to these supercomputers or quantum computers. Mm-hmm. So getting a group of us, and I think Silicon Slopes should actually be leading energy conversations, right? Like, how do we power all this stuff that's generative AI? It's a fossil fuels, you know, sun fuels game, right? And I think you're in Colliers. I think there's a place to nudge that conversation and to lead out. Like,
it's coming up in way more conversations than I thought. It's a barrier right now, the energy. Like we're really worried about it in the coming years, and big things need to happen because right now it's slowing down projects. We have projects that are contingent upon getting power, and that isn't just a gimme, right? Slowing down $50 million projects. So this is something we have to figure out. I will say if any state can figure it out, we can. Yeah. And I think we've been learning how to do public-private partnerships. When I watched during COVID, you know, with Silicon Slopes and the government, and, you know, we were all just like trying to do our best in early COVID. Wasn't that a crazy time? That was a real crazy time. But like we were like, okay, how can we figure this out? We can't just sit around and go, well, the government should do this. And the government can't sit around and go, the entrepreneurs or the businesses should do this. We've got to do it together. So I think we can figure it out, but it's true. Like the energy conversations, we've got to be having, and we are having them now, but we need to like prioritize it now, or in 10 years from now, we're going to be like, why didn't we worry about this? Why didn't we address this earlier? That's a really big concern. I will say just in this new seat from Colliers, in Colliers, seeing how Utah is seen from the rest of the country, we're behind in institutional money. We're a baby in a lot of these things. Some of these people have flown in to meet with do our capital markets and debt and equity structure, and they're like, well, you guys aren't utilizing any of these types of structures. I'm like, well, okay, well, help me figure this out. Let's get there. You know, we need to grow up as a state so that we can grow up. All tides will rise. But there is a lot that needs to happen there, and we need the right people at the table. I love that you're leading that initiative. I know you're doing a great job with that.
Yeah, thanks. Just wanted to throw that out there. Appreciate your engaging.
Is anyone else seeing those types of issues around like infrastructure, power, getting a expensive enough computer to actually build on AI and build AI companies? You don't have to answer that question, but go ahead.
Oh, good, because I don't know the answer. I'm curious about inland port and what kind of effect that's going to have, and also exploring opportunities that tech companies might have in participating in that.
Yes, now you are the governor. This is
Here's
how
the thing,
we're
I'm not the governor yet.
Governor Bennett.
Or ever. Bennett for Senate has a better rhyme, don't you think?
Oh, that does.
Anyway. I will say I don't feel like I know enough to have a great conversation about that yet. I wish I did.
Good answer.
Teach me. What do you know? What should I know?
Well, there's a lot of supply chain issues.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I'm in inventory tracking, so warehousing and integrating with various different systems. There's a lot of opportunities, I think, for tech companies to get involved with that.
One thing that I think is Utah's strength, but it's also a weakness, our do-it-yourself, we're going to figure it out kind of thing, is awesome, but like with the inland port. So we had people in our office this week from the Inland Empire in LA. We've had people from Germany. They've dealt with some of these issues. They're decades ahead of us, and we need to be having more conversations of like, teach us, instead of we're going to figure it out on our own. So I do think and hope that in my seat and others we can do more collaboration with states and public-private partnerships that we can learn from, instead of just trying to reinvent the wheel, which I think sometimes we do. And I've personally been guilty of that as well.
Okay.
So
Maybe
Cool.
you could tell us if an inland port is even a good idea.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
You know, the ports are getting crowded. You know, they're backed up, and they can load containers on a train and shoot them up here. You know, we could store it in yards and warehouses and then redistribute, locally or from here. You know, it's like having Amazon in our backyard, and which we actually do have, right?
yeah,
So
funny thing.
I think there's a lot of possible spin-offs from that, not just store forward, you know. So it's a huge thing.
Yeah, thank you.
So back to you mentioned that we're kind of a baby in a lot of areas and stuff. And I work in the tech industry. Most of the companies I work for are based out of California. And I'd like to see Utah get that way. And we've had some successes with, companies like Novell and Qualtrics, and of course Adobe bought Omniture. Do you think that's the right direction though? Like, I would like to see bigger companies come here, but is that really the right direction that Utah should take? Or should we just keep growing the companies that we have here?
So because Utah has sold our biggest companies, we don't have these Fortune 500 companies that are here. I would love to see a company ride all the way through, instead of selling. But also I get the reasons for selling. I understand why WordPerfect did what they did. They actually timed it perfectly, and the Ashtons have done great things in our community with that. And other companies like that, including Qualtrics, have sold. I would love to see a homegrown company just ride it all the way to the end. I don't know. What do you think, Clint?
I think that should be the idea, is like, let's build our own companies rather than try to recruit them from other places. I think that's, when you have entrepreneurs and you have leaders who are committed to the state where they started, you're more likely to get more benefit to the state than otherwise. But I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I worked for Novell at the time when they got acquired by Attachmate, and I was just like, I thought that was kind of a bummer. I mean, it was going to happen because the technology, they were a legacy technology company, and so, I mean, it's disappointing to see that, and I get why companies do exits and stuff like that. They want to cash out. I would like to see that too. I think more companies should stay in the game, but I think you just get to a point maybe that they can't. But I agree. I think more should do that.
I'd love to see that happen. You know, I mean, we've been blessed as a state by the people that have cashed out and all of that, but wouldn't it be awesome if we were the company acquiring in other states and we're exporting our culture and our ideals instead of letting them come in and bring their culture to our homegrown companies?
You mentioned your wide variety of interests in different industries and nonprofits and all kinds of other work. I wondered how you see Colliers working with nonprofit organizations and the impact there, and what that looks like and why it matters to you.
That's a great question. So, you know, Colliers is made up of individuals, just like every other company. And that's one thing that it is a big change for me to go from running a small publishing company to a large commercial real estate company. But I've noticed it's people and math. It's people and math. You know, it's different math equations, but it's making the math work and treating people well. So to answer your question there, as I've become familiar with the books and the people there, there's a number of times that Colliers individuals, brokers, have been working with nonprofits and donated their commission, or, you know, found them a space and made it work through the passion of their own hearts and their own time. Colliers Global isn't always like on board to help every little Utah person, but the brokers can facilitate that on their own, and I've loved watching that happen. I also think that because we have about 150 brokers, about 50 staff members, like everyone has a different specialty. Not everyone's Brandon Fugal, whose transaction volumes are, you know, 10 million, north of 10 million all the time. There are people doing the smaller jobs for the nonprofits. I also, one of the things that they wanted me to come on and do was help with their culture and unite them and be the adult in the room, is a phrase I've heard a number of times. And I want that to be part of the culture, to be nonprofits. For example, like the United Way Day of Caring. I'm on the board of United Way. Well, Colliers is going to participate this year because, gosh darn it, you know, we need to be there. Our Colliers brokers make by far higher than the average income in the state. I want to encourage them to all have their own passion projects. Give your time, give your money. Let's not get complacent with our high incomes here. Like, let's be givers. Let's live in this community and find the thing that you love and give it your time and your money. So that's one of the things that I'm passionate about because I've been working in so many nonprofits in various capacities. So I want to keep reminding them that that's part of our stewardship. And it's already there. Like, as I've seen the transactions, I'm like, oh, they helped this Catholic church or this school or this nonprofit find a space. That's what I want to see. Let's do more of that. I also I've thought it's been super cool through the years, people I've interviewed, both people and companies, that law of whatever you want to call it, karma, the secret, the law of reciprocity, people and companies that are givers, like, it comes back. It's almost like you can't give away money and time because it's like it just returns to you in some way. The unique company and their foundation is like that. I feel like so many companies, you know, including Qualtrics, having mission-driven things, Young Living, doTERRA, you know, they have these missions, and I think that's a great business strategy and a personal strategy to be someone who has your hand open to give, and then it's not why you give, but it does end up coming back to bless you. That's been a cool thing to write about. And if you look at Larry Miller, you look at John Huntsman Sr. In fact, one of my favorite stories about John Huntsman Sr. was that he was giving $50 to the single woman down the road when they were not wealthy themselves. I think they were still in college, and he was putting money in the mailbox for her. And I thought that's exactly why the math worked for him, is because whatever those laws of the universe are, the numbers got bigger and the gives got bigger and the wins got bigger. I think that's a cool way to be. So I see a little bit of that at Colliers. I'd like to see more of it. And I think that's only the right thing to do for the community, but also for us as individuals to have that as part of the makeup of our lives.
I just want to put in a plug for life sciences. I know that this has to be something big that you're swimming in. I'm in conversations a lot at the state level, legislature, World Trade Center around life sciences. I think we have an opportunity to grow some great life sciences companies here, as well as bring some other anchors to get that really going. And so I'm familiar with a region in England, Cambridge, where that kind of happened, where organic growth and then other big players came, and the velocity there. So life sciences is just a seed I want to throw into this conversation.
No, it's big. We have Dr. David Beers. We have a number of individuals and companies in that space that we need to rally around. I was in a meeting the other day, and someone was saying that all life science companies are like downtown or near the U. And I was like, that's actually not true. You know, there's life sciences all over this state and in Utah County, which of course has my heart. There's a lot going on. I think they need to get, speaking of stories, a little bit better about storytelling, because most people don't know that that's happening. And those stories need to be told and rallied around, and all of us can be part of that. But yeah, that's maybe, I don't know if it's a sleeper industry, that's probably too harsh, but that's an industry that a lot's happening and that a lot of people aren't aware of, that maybe doesn't get the headlines, but I'm well aware of it. And the Science Center at Thanksgiving Point that Brandon and I are working on, and I'm going to continue to work on that. Life science is one of the 6 areas that we want to focus there on exhibits and getting our kids excited about life sciences and careers in life sciences. So I'm with you on that. It's a good point.
Please give it up for Jeanette, our future governor. Bennett,
Clint, you're so funny.
2028.
Do you want to be my running mate?
All right, thanks everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.